Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Liam Hicks, and you're watching Fish on First Live.
Hello and welcome to the edition of FOF Live presented by About the Fans. As always, you can check out About the Fans and check out the brand new FOF merchandise collection, and you can get 10% off your first purchase with code FOF10 on checkout and get that beautiful hat that Eli is wearing. And you can come out, support FOF, or retweet, support everything you want to do when you buy something from About the Fans. But first, before we get into this huge series, against the defending champs, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and that powerhouse of a roster, let's go ahead and recap a little bit from their other West Coast series, and that is against the Seattle Mariners. The Marlins did lose that series 2-1, did get that first game, but it just really fell off in that second one. We'll get a little bit in that third. Eli, talk to us about this entirety of this series against the Mariners, the good, the bad, and maybe some of the ugly.
Yeah, well, the ugly was right in the middle. Probably the ugliest individual game that the Marlins have played all season long, where they fall behind early and they don't score at all. Just as I was in the middle of writing up how their offense had been really impressive to this point in the season. And that's what you saw it was bookended by pretty good offensive performances. That first game was, the most encouraging thing was that rally in the fifth inning of the first game, where they get a lucky break with Logan Gilbert getting hurt early. So they end up facing a mop-up guy who has since been DFA'd by the Mariners. So that just goes to show you the situation that the Marlins were able to take advantage of, but they still had to do it. And with 2 outs in that fifth inning, they ended up putting up 6 runs. That's the biggest 2-out rally they've had this year, in a year where they've had quite a few of those. But for them to be able to exploit that situation where they got an extra out to play with and end up taking a lead that they wouldn't surrender, that was really encouraging. And then the last game was yet another full display of Agustín Ramírez and everything he's capable of, to homer twice. I'd say the latter one was the most majestic home run of this young Marlins season, the way that he was able to admire that one in the 6th inning to cap off just one of the better debut weeks that we've ever seen for any team, but especially for the Marlins. And for him to do that in this series was, for him to just continue doing what he had done the first few games against Cincinnati, was awesome. So even though they lose the series, they had a chance in that second game, if not for the quality of their own starting pitching. So, the overarching thing that I guess we'll touch on as the show goes on is that the rotation is still a surprising weakness for this team. If you had a usual Max Meyer performance in that final game, they pull off, they probably win that one. But I think it was unrealistic to expect them to be great every time. They've put so much responsibility on Max's shoulders, and basically everybody else has been either inconsistent or just straight up bad to this point in the season. So that has really what's been pulling them down from potentially having a winning record at this point in the year.
Yeah, as we hear from the rest of the panel with Kevin, Alex, and Nate, I want to go to Nate here. And talking about this series here, it seemed like also without maybe that second game, it really seemed like maybe the offense really kept going for the Marlins. The pitching side just really fell off. It seemed like with Max Meyer, Connor, and even Cal to maybe somewhat of an extent. What did you see maybe offensively from this Marlins team? Maybe aside from Agustín Ramírez, what else did you see from them?
Yeah, first 2 games there wasn't too much outside of that big inning in the first game where they got fortunate. They should have been out of it, but Mervis rolls a ground ball and it's an error. And then, of course, they have a huge 2-out rally to push everyone across. But I guess notably, Jesus Sanchez had his first homer of the year. Agustin's was pretty majestic, but Jesus had a pretty good one of his own. That was in the first game to cap off that big rally. Nothing to report from Game 2, unfortunately. I had the pleasure of watching that one, and That was a doozy. There wasn't too much to report on there. And then the final game, definitely Connor Norby. He came into the game struggling a little bit, but I believe that capped off a 3-hit day, and that was a rope to left center to bring him within one. But then they had the Andres Munoz experience, and that's super fun. So Xavier Edwards also in the first game had a couple hits to break out of his mini slump, which that's as much as I don't like to admit it, he's been slumping more than we all like to see. So all around outside of Agustín, so for them.
Yeah, it's just overall, maybe not the best of series. Kevin, I want to hear from you before we get into Alex and the starting rotation. Kevin, talk to us a little bit. Some other things maybe you noticed before we head into the rotation. Maybe defensively, you saw maybe even some more offensively, which again was a bright spot in some of those games. Not so much that second one, but the rest. It seemed like maybe the offense was somewhat starting to pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, they also did not face, Seattle's best arm in that third game either. It was Logan Evans making his debut. I didn't watch too much of that game, maybe until the very end. I didn't get to watch, but overall, I mean, it's just a tough series. But I think Miami got pretty lucky in that first game, and you don't wish an injury on anyone, but probably the best thing that could have happened for them was Logan Gilbert coming out of that game because he was dealing up until he came out. But aside from that, I mean, Wagaman made his first career start in left field. Hasn't gone. I don't get to watch too much of that, but didn't seem terrible. And outside of that, I mean, Agustín Ramírez just doing Agustín Ramírez things, and I'm curious to see. I don't think he may have caught one game this series, but we'll see what that looks like against the Dodgers if he catches Sandy, or I'm sure he'll maybe catch today actually with Cabrera on the mound, but. We'll see with the next two games. And outside of that, it was an interesting start by Quantrill, I would say. Nothing great. Had him, actually gave him some length, but it was the two homers that really made the difference in that start for him. And outside of that, I mean, you'll take that first game, man. And I think what are the Marlins now? 13-16 or 13-15. So you'll take it. You're still in it. And now you're going to a really, really tough series against a really good Dodgers team, as Daniel said, the defending World Series champs.
Alex, I want to go to you really quickly. I mentioned the starting rotation. Maybe talk to us about the pitching as a whole. I'm looking at right now, MLB.com, going by the stats. The Marlins are ranked 27 out of 30 in team ERA, only behind the Rockies and the Orioles. The separation between those three teams is just about half a point, maybe even less than that. The Marlins are at 5.32 team ERA this season. Just what has been happening maybe with the pitching side of this team? It just seems like maybe the offense is now picking it up, but it seems like pitching-wise, it has not been what maybe a lot of Marlins fans and a lot of us really see when we see this Marlins team pitching.
Yeah, and the only reason that it's even as high as it is up the leaderboards is because of their bullpen. The starting pitching is even worse. They're even further down the list. They're second to worst in the majors in team ERA out of their starters. And it's because, like Eli alluded to before, like it's all just Max Meyer. Like if Max Meyer was just pitching average, which is what he was projected to do this year by a lot of people, this ERA would look a lot worse. The only reason is because he's been pitching otherworldly before that Seattle start. Sandy is still easing into it. I'm sure he's going to be fine, but Edward Cabrera is doing a lot of what he does, which is giving up walks and striking out a lot of guys, but still giving up a lot of runs. Connor Gillespie, it looks like his magical run to start the season and going back to spring training is over. I do like what I saw out of him in spurts, but you knew eventually the ride was going to come to an end, unfortunately. I hope that we see him up here soon again, but he's obviously not ready to be a full-time rotation guy. And then Cal Quantrill, 7.83 ERA, but like you guys said before, he had a great first 5 innings, a fantastic first 5 innings, and then third time through the order, he's struggling again. This is just a guess. I don't know what you guys think of this, but I'm going to guess that the front office is okay with letting him go out there a third time, because that is partially why he was brought in, is to eat up those innings, because you see how hesitant they were, especially in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, to let anybody go a third time through the order, except for Cal Quantrill. Even in his first start, they let him take on the top end of the Mets lineup with Soto, Alonso, and Lindor a third time. Now, is that because they just trust him so much more than any of the other guys? It's possible because he is a veteran, while other than Sandy, you have a bunch of very young guys. But I am also going to guess that it's because they're okay with stuff, the kind of stuff that we saw in Seattle, as long as he can get that final 6th inning for him. But yeah, super weird start to this season. I'm looking at the schedule right now. I mean, imagine saying that the Marlins would score, how much was it? 6 runs against the Mariners, and they were going to lose. And then how many runs did they score against the Phillies last weekend where they lost that game? What was it? Like
10
11?
runs in one of those
10
games.
runs.
Yeah, like scoring that many runs and still losing. Like back in the day, like it was funny. I wasn't able to follow along on Sunday, so I was getting a lot of my updates through Twitter notifications. And I'm seeing, oh my God, Agustín Ramírez, 2 home runs. Connor Norby is doing this. This guy's doing that. And I'm thinking, wow, the Marlins must really be taking it to them, because I'm so used to, like, if they give out any offensive production, they're going to win because the pitching has got it. It's just automatic. And then I look at the box score, and it's the pitching that's bringing them down. But also, and I'm sure we'll dive more into this, Ryan Weathers is coming back soon. Well, I don't know how soon, but he's at least pitching in rehab games. And then Yuri Perez is also pitching in rehab games. And then we might see someone exciting come up later this week. Maybe it'll be Valente Beozo. Maybe it'll be Adam Mazer. But someone is coming up
exciting?
to replace. What?
Is Beozo exciting to you?
Yeah, I think so.
You never know what you're going to get.
He's my
You could say
favorite.
Mazer is exciting, not Beozo.
He's my favorite 90-mile-an-hour guy.
All right. He's been good. I'll give him that. But yeah, you're right. And that's one thing that's fair to touch on because, I wrote about this during the offseason, how tough the Marlins schedule is. You still have to face the Dodgers here. I mean, in LA now with the 3-game set, and then obviously the one next week. But still, I mean, you're now getting out of the probably toughest part of your schedule to begin the season. And somehow this team has won 12 games, maybe takes one against LA. Let's see what happens against the Athletics, and then obviously LA at home. It's not terrible. Like I think we all expected this team to be as bad as the start last season, if not worse. And so, it's good to see that. And I know the comments are saying the starting pitching and all that stuff, but some pitchers have really stepped up. Connor Gillespie got off to a pretty nice start. He gave them what they needed. Quantrill seems to finally be settling in a little bit. We'll see what happens. And, Crutcher just mentioned that Weathers is about to come back, and Yuri potentially back towards the end of May, early June. So
That's crazy, by the way.
Yeah, that is really crazy.
Because we were all reporting, all of us.
He flew through the rehab, and so the pitching's definitely going to improve. Sandy seems to finally be settling in a little bit as well. So you're never gonna have another 14 strikeout performance by Max Meyer. If he gives you something,
he's gonna you know how Max is. He's gonna get a clip of this, and he's just gonna rewatch it.
I hope he does, and I hope he does it again.
And he's gonna use that as fuel. But yeah, I agree that his first. What was it? The first 5 starts overall prior to his last one. That's as good as the stretch as you could have reasonably expected from Max to tie together back to back to back. And yeah, it's a combination of just needing better quality, but also, as you guys touch on, needing more quantity and length from the other starters. Like the fact that Quantrill, he almost made it through 6 innings, but he didn't. Sandy finally had a 6-inning start his last time. And it starts tonight with Eddie, where Edward Cabrera, it's just a chronic issue with him getting deep into games, either due to being inefficient or just getting hurt. All the different creative ways that he's gotten injured during his starts through the years has been really frustrating with him. But it's not
that creative. It's either going to be right shoulder impingement or a blister on his left index finger.
It's worth noting with Cabrera, and I'm glad he brought him up, because the one thing that stood out, and I think not just Cabrera, we talked about this a little bit yesterday on the Spaces, it's the stolen bases. How many times teams have stolen bases off the Marlins? The Dodgers literally do not steal bases. They are 28th in the majors in stolen bases right now. They have only a 13. When Edward Cabrera starts this season, teams have stolen a total of 8 bases, and obviously we'll remember the 5 against the Diamondbacks. So it's either an awesome opportunity for the Dodgers to pump up those numbers, with probably Agustín Ramírez behind the plate. If
we'll get to him.
Or we'll see. I mean, maybe they don't steal many bases, but they have the guys to do it. They're not the fastest team in baseball for sure. I mean, you've got Freddie Freeman in there. You've got, I believe, Will Smith, Max Muncy, guys who are not very fast, but Shohei Ohtani had a 50-50 season. So we'll see what happens there. And you have Mookie Betts as well. So you'll have your guys here and there. And Kike, I'm sure, is a pretty fast dude. So that's one thing I'm looking at. I know we're kind of previewing it a little bit too early, but I'm glad you guys brought it up. I was looking at Cabrera, and it's like him and Sandy is like the worst back-to-back you could have in terms of, keeping runners on base. And we know Sandy's been dealing with that for a couple of years now. So, but with Cabrera, it feels like it's just coming up a little bit more now than usual. And especially with how bad defensively these catches have been for the most part, I would say. Liam Hicks, not too much, but I mean, we know what Ramirez is capable of not being able to do.
Kevin, that's what we call the Plant McCullough effect. The season leads the Dodgers. They just stop stealing bad. So what does that tell you about the Marlins? I'm just saying. Just throwing it out there.
You mentioned Ohtani. He leads the team with 6 stolen bases, but then the next highest is 2 stolen bases from Teoscar and Mookie Betts. So it's not – it's just getting all their production mainly from one player. Everyone else is just 2 and then maybe 1 here and there. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about, it seems like, the man of the week, maybe the player that should have gone player of the week in the National League, maybe in all of baseball, and that is Agustín Ramírez, and just how well he's been performing for the Marlins. For everyone here, maybe some people who are listening who don't really are aware of all his stats, let me tell you a little bit of his stats, and just a very small sample size, but in 19 at-bats, 5 games, 3 home runs, 9 hits, 4 doubles, 5 RBIs. He has 2 strikeouts with 2 walks and a stolen base. Eli, do you start the contract extension talks now or later?
It is a fun topic that we'll dive in later. Not now, but we'll dive into it later because this is, for now, all we've seen is the bat. It's an amazing bat, but he will have to see a lot more of him as a catcher and to get a good feel. But in terms of exactly who he is as a player moving forward, he is catching tonight, as we'll get into as the show goes on. And just as an offensive player, this has been amazing because he was universally considered one of the better prospects in this system, including by us. But at the same time, he wasn't blowing away the competition in the minors. He had like an 800 OPS across his minor league career, including a AAA. It was very good for a guy that can also catch, that is also a okay base runner. But that's a topic I was thinking of before they got called up, is how minor league numbers translate to the majors. And your minor league numbers usually put a pretty clear ceiling on what you're going to be in the big leagues. You're not usually going to be significantly better in the majors than you are against minor league competition. And through this week, he was. I don't think he had a single week like this during his entire minor league career. And I mean, you could see it and you can measure it. The bat speed is amazing. Jesus Sanchez used to be like the team leader in bat speed that it started measuring through StatCast the last couple of years. And Ramirez is a tick ahead of him in terms of how quickly he gets through the zone, the power that he generates from it. The underlying numbers back up the production, like his expected slugging right now is 800, even though his actual slugging is over 1,000. Even the expected numbers would be the best in baseball. It is Aaron Judge-like quality of contact so far. And the thing is, he's just making a ton of contact. That's the key to this, that he's only struck out twice during that first week. It's a strikeout rate less than 10%. He's not swinging and missing very often at all. And he's swinging a lot, especially early in the count. He's very aggressive on the first pitch of an at-bat, and yet he's still making amazing quality of contact. What's interesting is how much he's pulling the ball, because he does have power to the opposite field that we have not seen him really use at all to this point. I think every single hit he's had has been to the left of center field, whether it's up the middle, but most of them have actually been pulled to this point. And so that'll be an interesting test, because he'll eventually, there's going to be situations where he's going to be pitched away, and he'll have to actually go the other way if he's going to make more solid contact. And it's just in a very small sample. This was a very logical question about, is he actually here to stay, or is this going to be a stopgap until Fortes comes back from the IL? And it's in a single week. To have a week like this, it's just impossible to send him back down. They're going to find a way to fit him, make this a cohesive roster with him either as who knows how much he catches, how much he DHs, but he's going to do some of both in order to continue to get close to regular reps. Because in a small very quickly, it's become clear that he is one of the most talented offensive players on this team, if not the most talented offensive player that they have. So we take it one step at a time, especially with this organization, all the other catchers that are up in the air moving forward with this team. But yeah, it could not have gone any better at all from an offensive standpoint, these first two series.
Mm-hmm. I want Nate, your thoughts on Agustín. I don't want to talk about extension or anything like that. But still, I think it's way too early to even talk about money, especially when talking about the Marlins and them getting money. But with Agustín here, what do you do with him? That was a good question that came up. What do you do with him when Fortes gets back? Who's the odd man out? I don't believe you could bring out Agustín with the way he's been performing, but maybe Liam Hicks, or how would you even handle that catching situation when Fortes does come back from the IL?
It's a really tough one. Just the way that Agustín came up and has been doing, things we haven't seen players do in Marlins uniform since either Giancarlo Stanton or never. It makes the decision really hard. When Fortes does come back, though, I think it's so tough. You really can't send Agustín down if he keeps in even half of this pace up. You can't send him down. I'm probably I'm DFAing Hicks, honestly. It's what has to. I think it's just the easiest option. Fortes off to a really hot start offensively, and he's going to get good defense back there, and especially with a guy like Agustín, you need that. So, unfortunately Hicks hasn't been this bad. It hasn't been that bad this year, but and I know that he is the Rule 5 guy, so you want to keep him you have to keep him on the roster, but I think at this point, he made it way too tough for him. So as of now, I'm saying Liam Hicks, the odd man out.
And you have Joe Mack too, so it's just like.
And you have Joe Mack.
You can't have four catchers. There's no way that's possible in any team. Now, the most you can do, I guess. Oh, you never know. But
you can put him in left field with they did with Alfaro.
Yeah, Liam Hicks in left field. Oh, why not? No, but seriously, I think Mack could probably stay down the rest of the year. You keep Agustín, Agustín Hicks, and Fortes all on the roster. That's possible. That is possible. 3 catchers. You find a way to rotate them. I don't know how, but you do it. If Liam Hicks really just flops and continues to flop, at that point, I think it is fair to what Nate said. DFA him. See, I think if you DFA him, you could actually try to trade him, maybe. And then if that doesn't work, that's I think when you send him back to, I think Texas is where he was, and then next year, you could send him down. You could do whatever you want with Liam Hicks, and you could bring up Joe Mack, and it'll be the Joe Mack, Agustín Ramírez show. So I think that you could play it for 2025, 2026 this year.
Can you imagine a couple years back when the Marlins just had no catchers, and they're about to have Agustín Ramírez and Joe Mack? We used to pray for times like this. This is insane.
It is just such a weird spot for Hicks because he has a 328 on base percentage as a catcher, which is really good. Like for any catcher, to the discipline that he has at the plate and his contact skills, it's kind of been as advertised as a guy that doesn't really have any power, but he's a good approach at the plate, very good situational hitter in order to make productive outs. It's not terrible defensively. I think he's below average, but there haven't been a ton of gaffes that have actually cost him games at all back there. But he's somebody that would have value. That it's just complicated because he is still a Rule 5 guy, and if you trade him, he is still all those restrictions still apply to his new team. So there's only you don't see a ton of mid-season catcher trades to begin with. It is such a big part of that is the relationship that gets built during spring training between these pitchers and catchers. And then the other element on top of that is that if he goes to this new team, that team better be sure that they're going to carry him on their roster the rest of the year. It's a weird spot, but this is why I always take this stuff one day at a time, because fingers crossed everybody actually stays healthy and you get to make a decision. It's just so often with this stuff, once a guy's about to come back from the IL, somebody else goes down, and you just hope that doesn't happen. But once Fortes begins his rehab assignment, that's when I'll really try to make sense of this, and that's when I think the team is going to have to figure out what they want to do here.
Because of how rare it is to trade a catcher mid-season, would Nick Fortes have any sort of value, even if just to get relief pitchers or just anything like that? I mean, he's a competent catcher.
Yeah.
And he's not an absolute black hole in the lineup.
Well, this year he hasn't been.
Yeah, for a big chunk of last year he was, until it got caught fire in the second half, and then for a lot of the previous year he was really disappointing back there. I think that's the decision that they make a lot later in the year, but in terms of what they do immediately, it's a tough one, especially just because they're pretty stubborn about not letting Ramirez play first base at all since he's come over to the organization. He's done that in the past. He did that in the Yankees system, and that would open up more possibilities. Very quietly, Matt Mervis coming back down to earth. He's hitting 200. He's still striking out a ton. It's in a way that, like, I don't know what that looks like a couple weeks from now, even though it felt like he was such a pleasant surprise early on. It's trending in a way where it's like, I don't know if he's an essential piece of this roster as it moves forward. And if you could play Ramirez at first base, that would help. But then again, Liam Hicks plays some first base. It's just that his offensive profile does not fit that position at all because of the lack of power. So these are good problems to have. And it's ultimately their offense is in good space just as it is right now. And it's going to continue to be about finding solutions on the pitching side because that's what's holding them back right now.
And to Krudrick's point, on most teams that are competing, Nick Fortes would be a pretty good backup catcher to have, like one that could catch a couple times a week. He's good defensively. You're not going to put him in the lineup much, but he could be out there, I don't know. I feel like that is a pretty good idea to float, one that I thought about maybe a couple days ago, just didn't know. It really does depend how he comes back, how he plays. But Fortes could be easily someone who you could trade to another team, even if it's for a really low-level prospect. You'll take those at this point, and the Marlins would develop that and whatever it may be. So, and I think Fortes still has a couple of years of control left. I know he's in arbitration, so that price is only going to go up. And the Marlins have traded. I know it's different with like a Jake Berger, but you traded him before his ARB years, so you can. And Fortes
is one of the few players on this team making more than $1 million. That would be a nice 1.8 mil to get off the book.
Yeah, 1.8 mil less that the Marlins payroll has for this grievance in I think a year. But you could trade him.
Yeah, he can, always have that value defensively. I don't know if you can help me, Eli. I keep forgetting the name of that catcher who I feel like gets traded every single year. One of the best defensively. I know he's with the Pirates.
Austin Hedges.
Austin Hedges. There we go. Thank you. In a way,
maybe I can't hit for anything.
He's been on a team, it seems like, for the last decade, and it always feels like gets traded. Teams find value in that. They know his offensive profile is not the best, but Fortes at least has a better offensive profile. So maybe teams would be more likely to trade for Fortes. But from that, Eli, I think it's a good time to now look at the lineups. The guys that were just released for the Dodgers and the Marlins for this upcoming series against the defending champs. But again, the Marlins have not always fared well against the Dodgers, especially in Dodger Stadium. It's just really difficult how the Marlins have been playing against them. And again, with this lineup today, it's a lot of maybe a bit of a mixed bag between the Marlins and the Dodgers. Kevin, let's talk a little bit of the Marlins first before we head into the Dodgers there with really guys Ohtani and Mookie Betts, Will Smith, guys like that. But talk to me about this Marlins lineup. Ronnie Simon, Graham Pauley, Wagaman in left field. There's a lot, maybe not too much to like here, except maybe for Agustín behind. But what do you see here on this lineup? What do you think Clayton's trying to get out of with these 9 men?
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly a lineup, at least at the bottom. I am curious. Finally, Simon getting some playing time. Get to see that. Paulie, I feel bad for the guy because I think he's a solid player for the most part, but. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lineup for sure. We'll see if Edwards can kind of break out of this slump he's in. I know he had the 2-hit game the other day. Wagaman, this is actually something we could even bring up because they're now starting to play Wagaman in left. De Los Santos in AAA is heating up. He's on the 40-man. Do you guys think maybe Wagaman at left is maybe a reason, that they're experimenting, see if they could keep the bat in the lineup? And we know, and Eli noted it, Matt Mervis has been struggling recently. He's still obviously going to hit for power, but maybe they're trying to experiment how this works to see if eventually De Los Santos comes up and just splits the reps with Mervis at first, and whoever it is, DHs, and Wagaman can maybe get in there. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too far ahead, but Wagaman never played left field in his career until at least in the majors up until now. So it's
Right.
it's a fair assumption, I would say.
The fact that I keep seeing this is the wrinkle I didn't really see coming, where all of a sudden Wagman is playing. He's now done, 3 times in the last 4 games he's played
He's
left
played every
field.
game left. Yeah.
I would be pissed if I was Dane Myers. I thought when Griffin Conine went down that Dane would have a pretty clear path to increase playing time. If not every day, then a lot. Also, Javier Sanoja, too. I mean, both of those guys are better defensively in left field than Wagaman is. And I've been Crutchick wrote about Wagaman and the adjustments he's made and the production he's had. It's nice to have him in the lineup a lot. I did not think they would force him into the lineup almost every day and at the expense of Dane and Sanoja. Those are the 2 guys those guys missing out. And I mean, and Graham Pauley's in a weird spot where he should not be in the big leagues right now. He should be back down in Jacksonville playing almost every day at the moment. And I think he's the guy that's going to go once the next veteran player returns from injury, whether that's Hill or whether that's Fortes, whoever it is. Like Paulie, you need to get him in the lineup at some point. But as people are pointing out in the comments, Norby just had his best offensive game of the season, and for him not to be playing tonight just to largely make room for Paulie to get some reps. That's just part of being in a awkward situation where you don't want to totally mess up Paulie's development, even though he's on the roster right now, so he has to get in there occasionally. Yeah, I just keep going back to the Dane and Sanoja angle of it. For them to use Wagman like this, I didn't see it coming, because those are guys that the Marlins are, I think, especially with Dane. Like, Dane is one of the oldest guys on this roster. He's 29 years old, and he's just never gotten a chance to play consistently in the big leagues. I thought this was going to be his chance, and to this point, he is still being platoons a lot on the small side of a platoon. So I'd be pretty frustrated if I was him.
Yeah, it's very strange. And up until recently, I would have said Sanoja shouldn't be in the lineup and that he's great off the bench because of his versatility. Why limit him to just one position to start off a game when he can be keyed into virtually any position as a substitute? But he's been really good at the plate too over the last 5 games. He's on let me count those actually. He's on a 5-game hitting streak, and he is this correct? He's gotten a hit in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's gotten a hit in 10 in his last 11 games, which is crazy. I don't know what either of them have to do to get into the lineup. I like Wagman. I like what he's been doing, but they got to figure out a way to, I know there's only 9 spots in a lineup, so I'm glad I'm not the one that has to make this decision, but they've got to figure out a way to get these guys in there.
And with the Xavier Edwards thing, I'll go to Nate on this. I just floated the idea. I'll probably dive into it more if he continues to be in a mini slump, where I think he should still be playing every day. But compared to the rest of these guys, as an overall offensive player, he's been one of the least valuable guys, all things considered. He hasn't stolen a base in over a couple weeks. I think he's only attempted one in the last 2.5 weeks. If he's, all things considered, if he's not running when he gets on base, then it's does he have to be the leadoff guy in this lineup? Is there, who would be, you think, the alternative plan on days if they were to do something bold, like drop him to the bottom or even give him a day off, which they have not done at all this year? Where do you think they would go for an alternative at that spot in the lineup?
It's tough. We know that he can hit late in the order. He succeeded at it a lot when he first came up last year. We were all pushing for him. He moved up, and then he did great the rest of the year. I have nothing against that, to be honest with you. Throw him in the 8, 9s. Like you said, even when he is getting on, he hasn't swiped the bat, which is something that really has kind of got on my nerves this year. McCullough made it a huge point in spring training. We've seen it all spring that he's going to be aggressive on the bases, and you have a guy like Xavier Edwards, who is aiming for 70 or 60 bats this year, and they just haven't been sending him. So that's a personal gripe I have. But if you want to replace him up top for a game or two, just to change it up for him, like you said, he hasn't got a day off either. So mini slump, you got to switch something up. I think you got to throw Javier Sanoja up there, no matter where he could play, left, second, even DH if you need to. And if not him, then Otto, even though Otto's been struggling as well. Just someone that can kind of replace his role, get on base, maybe steal you back. So I'm all for that. Anything to get him back on, because like you said, if he's not getting on base and he's not stealing them, he's not adding much value to this team, unfortunately.
But then you could even make the case where it's like you really don't have many money options there because Sanoja's not playing every day. Simon, who's really quick, is not playing every day. He's barely playing to begin with. Otto Lopez has been slumping down to the lineup. Like, who else are you going to really put? And I do agree. Like, Edwards has not been good so far recently. He's not stealing, which, as you noted, Nate, they talked a lot of game about we're going to steal bags, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to create runs, and that's the least that they've done. And, I guess that's a good thing in the case where they've been able to rely on the power of a Mervis or Ramirez, Wagman, even Sanchi. But you still, if you're Edwards, you're up in the lineup to steal bases and create some havoc there. But that's not what he's done. And I really don't get it. And I think we mentioned this on the spaces. How much is that knee still bothering him? How much is that an issue? Is that still limiting him? Because if it is, you may as well put him on the IL and just let him rehab through that. Because at this point, if it's limiting you from doing the thing you're best at, and using your biggest strength, which is your base, your base running, your ability to steal second and even third, why even be up there? And he's slumping, and he's obviously not hitting well. So it's just like, and that would allow someone like a Sanoja, who we've spoken about, play every single day up until Edwards is back. It's the same profile, less power, but he could lead off. He'll steal the bags that you need. He's been awesome so far this year after a really slow start. So I don't know. I think if this knee is truly still bothering him, may as well throw him on the quote unquote phantom IL in this case and let him kind of just rehab through it, a simple 10-day stint. I don't know because obviously Otto Lopez hasn't been it.
If it's a real injury concern, it wouldn't be a phantom IL. It would just be a regular IL placement. But the fact that he's played every single day tells me that they don't think it's a physical concern. They would be mixing in. I would think that they'd be mixing in some occasional off days if it was at all in people's mind. I just brought that up because my perhaps unorthodox answer, I'd probably bet Kyle Stowers lead off on days where Edwards isn't. I've been so surprised by Stowers and how his discipline has improved and how he's just been a really well-rounded hitter, especially against righties, against lefties. And the thing is, he's not really hitting for power at all. But again, as a leadoff hitter, that's not necessarily something you're demanding of yourself. He's been getting on base so consistently. It's like a 380 OBP between the walks and all the line drives to all fields. So even though he is not much of a base running impact guy, in this situation, I think that's the guy I would turn to before Sanoja. Even though Sanoja has that more traditional skill set, Stowers has been a really valuable offensive player right now. So that's just on top of my mind. But I'll give Edwards a little bit more time to get this figured out. It's just that we keep praising this offense and we keep dancing around the fact that, Edwards is actually one of the guys that's dragging them down a little bit. So because they have so many other guys that are producing, even if it's unorthodox skill sets, there might be a way to rearrange this to get even more out of all the production they've had offensively.
And I do think Tevin
he's just swinging.
Oh, go ahead, Kevin. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say really quickly, and he's just swinging at more pitches. And obviously the strikeouts were expected to go up. I mean, that's just how it is. But for him to not be as selective maybe as he was last year, and something's obviously the league adjusts to you and you need to adjust back. And it just seems like he hasn't done a very good job of adjusting back. And he's just, I don't know, it feels like the strikeouts, because he's not someone who does that as often. And you could still adjust back and it's still 17%. It's actually it's pretty impressive. It's just like I feel he's just swinging. Yeah, exactly. He's just swinging more, and it's just that's what makes him not very valuable. I don't know. He's gonna have to find a way to get on base because it's not working right now. So I don't know. It's a really tough situation with X because he's a good player. I mean, we saw it last year, and it was a good stretch. And he just hasn't been able to do it again.
The Dodgers. Yeah.
Sorry. I was just going to add that I agree with Kevin. I think Kevin brings up something really, really good because not a lot of bats that are consistent starters in this lineup are doing that well right now either. There's a lot of slumping bats in this order. I mean, you look at Jesus Sanchez, Matt. We all talked about Matt Mervis, Otto, and Paulie too, and Simon's on there consistently enough. So it really is right now a lot of Wagman, a lot of Stowers, and a lot of Agustín Ramírez. So it does trim your pitching down a lot, but I would really like Stowers at the 1-2. So you can go ahead.
Yeah, a lot to talk about on the Dodgers side right here. Not quite full strength because Miguel Rojas is in there. That's how you know that they're going to their depth a little bit. I want to actually start with Andy Pajes right here because he beat
Yeah.
out Augustine for National League Player of the Week, and he did deservedly. I kind of joked that Augustine got stubbed, but Pajes was just as good of an offensive player last week. He had 3 home runs. I think a 650 batting average and OPS that was somehow even higher. Like he's on a tear after getting off to a slow start. And for him to be the 7 hitter in this lineup kind of just speaks to the crazy star power that they have offensively. Is led by Ohtani, won 50-50 last year. This year, he's only on pace for about 35. So he has come back down to earth, but the underlying numbers are ridiculous. A 60% hard hit rate is nuts for a guy that also runs very well. But yeah, a little minor injuries earlier this year for Freddie Freeman, but he's back. And yeah, just across the board, the fact that even Max Muncy, he got off to a really slow start, but is rounding into form a little bit right here. It's there's really not a ton to say. This is a team that I think the last time they saw the Marlins is when they put up 20 runs at Lone Depot when Shohei got his 50-50. Yeah, Kevin, you touched on it earlier about the strength of schedule that the Marlins are facing early in the year. This team is about as talented as any team that they've faced so far.
Yeah, I mean, even Will Smith, who leads the Dodgers in OPS plus, where is he even hitting? He's hitting 5th in this lineup. Yeah, 5th. So just shows you how good this lineup is. It feels like always, I don't know how he's doing specifically, but Conforto always seems like he's decent wherever he goes. He's actually been terrible. Never mind. But got to get him in there. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good lineup. Max Muncy hitting 8th just tells you all you need to know. And for whatever it's worth, and we'll talk about the pitching matchups, Tony Gonsolin's starting for them. This is his first time back from I think it was TJ, whatever it may have been. But the last time he, was on the mound, it was against this Marlins team. And I think he gave up 10 runs. That was the game in LA where he gave up 10. Not good at all. Obviously a different lineup, but still some names in there that I guess were part of that. I don't know if X was there by that point, but yeah, I mean, and you have Edward on the mound. He did not do very well against this Dodgers lineup whatsoever last year. So it's going to be a tough challenge for Gonsolin, hopefully. And then for Cabrera, facing a really good lineup, going to have to take care of Muncy and Rojas if you want to get out of some things there, and Conforto too, who's in the middle of the order there. So it's not going to get easy from 1 to 7. I would say it's pretty tough. And then Muncy, you mentioned, is heating up. So I guess the only other thing worth noting is that defensively, they're not great. I mean, you're having Muncy at third. I don't think he's a very good third baseman from the numbers, at least. Pajes, that's a pretty good that's a pretty good outfield for what it's worth. Teoscar, Pajes, Conforto. Smith is a really good catcher. Outside of that, I mean, yeah, not the greatest defense. So maybe take advantage of that. Play some small ball, see if that works. But we'll see how it goes. Some guys are past their primes defensively, at least. I think is the best way to say it, because you have a couple Gold Glovers out there, but even Betts playing short, not usual. And I know he's an everyday guy now, but hadn't played much shortstop before this season.
One thing I wanted to point out that I don't know if people are aware of, the Dodgers started 8-0, and then since then they've basically been a 500 team the last couple of weeks. This may have gone under the radar. I don't want to get people's hopes up too high, but if you just look at this game by game progression here, not only they've been like teetering at 500 for the last couple of weeks, they usually don't win by huge margins. I think their last game is that the Big Green Bar. That was their biggest blowout win of the season. One of their only true blowout wins at this point in the year. So even though they've been successful overall, well, that success was kind of front loaded. And also even when they've had success recently, it's been competitive at the very least. I want to point out one of the flipped fish involved in this series, not Miggy Rowe, but Tanner Scott is the closer of the Dodgers. And it's been an interesting ride for him where he has 8 saves already, which is one of the league's leading totals, but he's not walking anybody. He's also not striking out nearly as many people as they used to be. But this is a guy that got a $72 million contract. And as it turns out, we've highlighted it recently, trading him the way that the Marlins did at the deadline last year got the Marlins two of their better pitching prospects and Adam Mazur and Ravi Snelling. So Krutchik, this is going to be an interesting experience where these games are close at the end, the way that the Dodgers games usually are. Could be Tanner trying to shut the door against the Marlins. And I mean, as much as he was valued during his time with Miami, how successful it was, I think they can probably live with the fact that maybe they got the very best out of him, and that this is the way that relievers go, where once you get to a different stage of their career, sometimes it dips down in pretty unpredictable ways.
Yeah, that's why I'm always, unless you are in the midst of a competitive window, which the Marlins decidedly were not, I'm always team trade your relief pitchers for any value you can get. It's also why, unless you're Mariano Rivera or Trevor Hoffman, I hate giving out multi-year extensions to relievers. We remember Richard Blyer going out, buying a silver chain, and immediately being one of the worst relievers on the team after getting a 3-year, 4-year extension, one of the only extensions handed out by Bruce Sherman. So they certainly got the best out of him. I wish the best for him over there. He's still a good pitcher, but it's so hard to predict year by year what these relievers will do, partially because the sample size is not really that big. I mean, even the most used pitchers, the most used relievers will only go 70, 80 innings a year. And over the course of a 162-game season, that's really not enough to really know what kind of pitcher he is.
And Eli kind of mentioned it, like the trade has worked out so well. Like I know Paulie hasn't been what anyone expected, but he's up at the major league level. You know, he's been with them almost throughout the entire season. Essentially, he got sent down for like 10 hours and then came right back, and he had a pretty solid spring. Robbie Snelling's a top pitching prospect, close enough. I know you have Thomas, but like he's been awesome. Mazur's been awesome in AAA this season, and Mazur's probably going to start on Friday if I had to guess. You know. We'll hope it's him against the Athletics. And I'm missing the last name of that deal, which was Jay Bashirs. I think he's like in low air high. I don't know where he is, but you know, like 3 out of the 4 players have been pretty awesome for the Marlins so far. And in a trade that also had Brian Hoeing, who I think is in AAA for the Padres. He didn't even make their opening day roster. So yeah,
He's hurt, right?
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay, I knew he didn't make the roster, but.
Yeah,
okay.
He has I think a shoulder injury right now.
I don't follow Brian Hoeing's career.
I'm doing I'm doing some pregame research for this game, and I actually didn't know this. You guys know, after all of his struggles with walking guys, he actually hasn't given up a walk in 14 innings this year, Tanner Scott.
Yeah, look at that. 99th percentile in walk rate.
Good for him.
And chase percent. Holy shit.
Right. It's interesting where last year he was amazing at limiting hard contact, and now this year he's still having a lot of hard contact, and he's getting away with it sometimes. The thing is, when you make this kind of big investment in him for 4 years, one of the higher paid relievers over those 4 years, I mean, it would make other teams more nervous. I guess with the Dodgers and how limitless their resources are, they really don't have to stress about it that much. If inevitably, if things do flip on him, and he's just hit around in important moments, and they can move somebody else into that spot. And that's really honestly the biggest strength of this team is how deep their bullpen is. Old friend Alex Vesia is pitching really well, and he's a guy that has even more swing and miss so far this year than Tanner Scott does. They have Blake Trinan, who has some of the nastiest stuff in baseball and always has. Kirby Yates, I remember when they signed him late in the offseason, and it was crazy because how far down on the depth chart he is, even though he's somebody that I think he was closing games last year for the Rangers and doing a great job at it. And now he's kind of a middle reliever with how deep this team is. Anthony Bonta, they randomly turned him into a good reliever last year, and he's still around. So this is something that I complained about recently on the stream about how the Marlins don't have a super deep bullpen with guys that you trust. And the Dodgers are kind of the opposite of that, where they just have so many guys, even when they're getting blown out seemingly, and they don't get blown out very often. Even when they're trailing in games, they just throw up zeros. Whoever they bring in, they're going to be able to probably throw up zeros and keep the game within reach for them to answer back in there. The big flaw with them is their injuries to their rotation. I think there was a lot of criticism. I don't know about criticism. There was just a lot of hand-wringing in the offseason about how much starting rotation depth they had. They were stealing all the good pitchers from everybody else. They signed Blake Snell. They signed Roki Sasaki, of course. They have Ohtani coming back. This is the current looking at all the pitchers they have on the IL. This is just the injured pitchers they have at the moment, from Snell to Clayton Kershaw to several of these other young guys that were up and coming and have nasty stuff. But as you see, a lot of Tommy John surgeries in here. And then Tony Gonsolin, as Kevin alluded to, he's finally coming back on the IL, off the IL for the series. But I mean, Tyler Glasnow might be just switching places with him. And now Glasnow's health is uncertain after having a shoulder scare. Ohtani isn't pitching yet. That's been another interesting subplot of this. After missing all of last year recovering from elbow surgery, they've been slow playing it deep into this year before really even thinking about him as a rotation option. And that's why, even though they're investing so much resources in this rotation and all the depth that it has, the Marlins are getting them at a good time. I mean, just look at the probables for this series. It's Dustin May, who is pretty nasty, but has a short track record. I don't know what they're doing in the middle game of the series. It's probably a bullpen day. And then it's Tony Gonsolin coming back from a 2-year hiatus to pitch in the finale. So Nate, even though there's so much experience and talent on their pitching staff, I guess the Marlins are getting them at about the best possible time, all things considered.
Yeah, the best possible. I mean, if you're playing against the Dodgers and you get a bullpen game and Tony Gonsolin, who has not thrown a pitch in the bid for around 2 years, then I'd say that's a win. Like you said, Dustin May has always had some amazing stuff, but even he hasn't. It's one of his first starts back from off the IL himself. So this is probably the most ideal we could get. Not for maybe Miami's pitchers. I really wonder how Cal's going to do if he can build off that last start and really see what the Marlins and all of us have really been expecting from at least better, at least, keep taking steps forward. Eddie tonight, I'm very concerned. If he gets behind any of these guys, it might get ugly. That's all I'm going to say. And Sandy, I think we're just all really hoping for, like I said, with Cal, just another step forward. You went 6 innings for the first time last Wednesday. Just had a few couple bad innings. He was perfect on, I think it was the odd innings. He was perfect. Even innings, not so much. So if he can just get a little bit more consistent, get back into that Sandy mode, as he said himself. So I mean, Tuesday from Dodger Stadium, Sandy, I think we might. I'm not getting anyone's hopes too high, but I have hope for him.
In his career, Sandy has been terrible against the Dodgers.
Oh, he's been horrible.
So is Eddie.
In LA. Yeah, but Sandy, when you have a 12.94 ERA in 4 starts, your last one you gave up, where was it? I found it. You gave up 2 home runs, 3 walks, struck out 4. It was 5 innings, and before that, you gave up 3 home runs in your first start in LA. This is, I think, with the Marlins. And you're only 6 earned runs. Like, he's been overall terrible against the Dodgers. He gave up 8 in 2021. Like, he's not been good at all against the Dodgers. So at home, on the road. I'm sorry. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And obviously, you hope he takes the right step forward. But it seems like this could be one of those starts where you take a step back. Hopefully that's not the case, but he did have a complete game against the Dodgers at one point. So who knows? We'll see.
Don't forget about the 2022 All-Star game either. Cannot forget about that one.
Yeah, he's got to tap into that. Just watch that second inning on repeat. Just remember that you can do this in Dodger Stadium. It is possible.
Yeah. And Cabrera's been terrible too over there. So
Cabrera has
let's not get ahead of ourselves with Eddie.
He's giving up 10 earned runs per 9 innings against the Dodgers all time.
Yeah, and I think Eli noted this. He was the pitcher that started that game when Ohtani hit 50. So
that's why he left early, and they ended up. I remember Mike Bauman in that game allowing the home run, and I remember Bruhan pitcher coming in later and allowing 51. I had not remembered Eddie, but yeah, he was right in the middle of that, and a reason why they had to dip so deep into their bullpen late in the year last year for that. Yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup, no doubt about it. With
over 10 ERA in LA for Eddie. So
yeah.
That's crazy. You guys remember Tony Gonsolin, his last start before he went down was against the Marlins, and everyone thought the Marlins finally figured out how to hit against starting pitching because they put up 10 runs against them in that start.
10 runs.
And then it came out the next day that he tore his UCL, and that's why he looked so bad.
Yeah.
Jacob Stallings hit a home run. Jake Berger hit a home run.
I think that's when they scheduled the MRI. And they were like, Jacob Stallings just hit a home run. Get Dr. Atrache on the phone.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, they welcome him back in the series finale. That's going to be a Wednesday matinee, but super late night with the Fish each of the next 2 nights. And we're getting this one out of the way a few hours early to not overlap with the Heat and the Panthers playoff games. We head to our final segment now. Prediction time.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
Let's just get a moment to pull up our leaderboard for prediction time so far this season. Our staffers, our live stream guests, and our valued super subs make your predictions before every single series. And Lucas has been on top for a couple of series now with 16 total points based on how many games the Marlins are going to win, who's going to be the series MVP as determined by win probability added. I'm off to a horrendous start, so I don't even make the cutoff here. But Kevin has the edge among our current staffers right now with 12 points right there. So anytime between now and first pitch of a series opener, you can make those predictions. So you can head on over to fishonfirst.com. And if you are a super sub, then you just comment on the article with your predictions, or you could put them in our Discord server, which the link is in the description on YouTube. If you're not already part of our Marlins Discord server, you could submit them to me that way. So I do have as you would expect, there is quite a bit of pessimism from our super subs who have submitted their predictions so far, but not unanimous with the Dodgers winning. Vast majority have LA winning, Ohtani being the most popular MVP pick, but we do have some optimists in here. LMF has told me that for every single series the rest of the year, he's going to pick the Marlins to win.
Jesus Christ, LMF, you want to finish last, man? And you're choosing Norby, who's not even playing tonight?
Well, let's admit that ahead of time. I think a lot of people are confused by why Norby isn't in the lineup tonight. But as we went through getting Paulie in the lineup, we think Norby's going to be available off the bench when the situation presents itself and should start the remaining 2 games of the series. And Saul going bold, thinking that Sandy is going to defeat these Dodgers demons that he's had in the past and put up a great start in the middle game of this series. So we'll watch it play out. We'll keep track of your points, of course. And so without further ado, I will cue up the music, and then I think we will start with this is such a rare pleasure of having Krutchik on with us. So we're going to go to him first for his prediction.
Okay, I'm going to be positive today, and I'll go with the Marlins winning 2 out of 3. I think Kyle Stowers will be the MVP. He's having a quiet slump right now. He's 282 over his last 12 games with 1 extra base hit to show for it. So I think that he's finally going to get on board to get away this series. And 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers.
I think Kevin's reaction suggests he has a different idea for this one.
Yeah, I was back and forth because you never know what type of Tony Gonsolin you're going to get. You don't know who that TBD is going to be. Actually don't know who it is. But I'm going to go safe. Say Dodgers take 2 out of 3. And Will Smith will be my MVP. He's been awesome so far. Hopefully he catches at least 2 out of 3 games. And you never know. I do think the Marlins could actually go into LA, take 2 out of 3 if you get the best version of Sandy possible, and Quantrill keeps you in it.
Let's hear from Nate Karsberg.
I am optimistic, but I'm so optimistic that I think they'll take 1. That's as far as I'm going here. I think the big reason that is going to be Teoscar Hernandez. He has 25 RBIs, good enough for the 2nd most in all of baseball. He's on a couple more of the series, probably off Eddie tonight, so that's your MVP.
I'll go with the Dodgers winning 2 out of 3 in this one. Pretty keeping it safe with this obvious one. With there's just too much talent going both ways, and I do have so much respect for that bullpen that they have as well. I think even if you have to lean on it very heavily over the course of these few days, that's kind of the separator between them and Miami, in my opinion. Is the depth of arms they can go to patch things together and throw up zeros in games that are actually closely contested. But I do expect it to be a very hard-fought series. The Dodgers' track record would suggest that's going to be the case, even with all the big names and the accomplishments their players have. Here's MVP. I will ride with one of the more anonymous members of their roster. I'll ride with Andy Pajes and what he's been doing recently, playing at Agustín levels on the opposite coast. And I think he's going to keep it up for a few more days to ultimately make the difference. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. FOF Live. Daniel hosting the first half. Eli Sussman here the second half. Thanks to Kevin, Alex, and Nate bringing us here. Good luck to the Panthers tonight. Good luck to the Heat tonight. I think they're going for a gentleman's sweep at this point, just trying to take one game and keep their season alive a little bit longer. And only 5+ months away from Marlins playoff baseball at the rate that they're going.
Kevin, do you have a prediction for tonight's Panthers game?
They're going to win, man. Come on.
Awesome. Who's scoring the game-winning goal? And you can't say Matthew Tkachuk.
Sam Bennett.
All right. There we go.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Kevin read my mind. Yeah, Sam Bennett, my favorite Panthers player.
I know Nate knew that as well. So
Obviously, I was actually going to say, what's that guy's name? Reinhardt. Is he still on the team?
Yes, yes.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going for. Yep.
Reinhardt, Marchand. Hey,
Yeah. We know hockey here.
We try.
we're puck.
Yeah.
lovers.
We
Yeah,
try.
one of us does.
We know puck.
We're puckheads.
Come back when the Panthers win 3-2 tonight.
Puck on first, baby. All righty.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be back with another stream on Friday when the team is back home. Plenty of content in between. Fishonfirst.com. Check it out. And thanks for following what we do. As always, go fish.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.